Welcome everybody to another episode of Tell Me Everything Frog Girl Fridays. Favorite time of the week. I love Frog Girl Fridays. It's my favorite thing, you guys. Anyways, I'm your host, Danielle Spinelli. If you have not watched any of the other episodes, highly suggest it. If you're a shipper, I have a whole month dedicated to you as a shipper. We're working on a carrier one, working on auto theft month. We're working on pulse check and broker focus and just trying to get different things out there. I think is so important to not only educate yourself, but also educate your team on things that are relatable directly to you and your business, because everybody's got different businesses out there. So we also have like a trade compliance one too. That's a good one. That's with Julie Davis. Anyways, this episode, I got Nick on with us. Awesome guy. He sure knows his stuff. So great to have him on here. He's with Vectura. I almost say Ace Ventura all the time, but it's not Ventura, it's Vectura. Anyways, they're great. Like they're the level of police and military people that they hire for those cargo escorts are huge. I said escorts in the episode too. And he's like, it's cargo escorts. But anyways, those cargo escorts to make sure that your product does get from A to B, especially if it's X amount of dollars or higher, or sensitivity wise or risk wise. You know, sometimes I just think we want to make as much money as we can on things, but sometimes it's a little bit more than that. I'm like, hey, I also don't want to have a load stolen and deal with that headache or write a check for that, or also damage my relationship with my shipper. So this one's more focused towards brokers and things that you guys can do to kind of have that good relationship with your shippers, how to mitigate your risk, especially with high value loads. Vectura obviously has their own platform and does their own thing, so I highly suggest checking them out. But even if you don't have anything like that, it's still important to kind of learn about what others are doing and having success with, and ways that you guys can implement different changes within your processes. Anytime that you guys have any feedback or want to learn more about whatever, please feel free to ping me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for following, liking, subscribing, blah, 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 all the things. I love doing this, so I appreciate you guys so much. All right, let's jump in it. Awesome. We are live. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Fraud Girl. I'm so happy to have you on here. Like as soon as I've known you for a minute, but like whenever I saw you in California, and that's whenever the podcast was kicked off, I was like, you guys got to come on. So I'm so happy you're coming on. How are you?
Good, Danielle. I appreciate having us on the podcast, and looking forward to chatting.
For sure. I know kind of part 2 from your company. We did Shipper Focus. You guys were great in being part of our Shipper Focus education and kind of getting products in front of their faces. Obviously, they're not coming out to all the shows like a lot of brokers are. But I think it's still important to do a broker focused one as well, because not everybody can go to shows, especially like mid-sized, smaller brokerages, and they deserve to know all the things too. So yeah. Well, if you would just real quick, kind of introduce yourself, talk about kind of what your company does for just a second, and then we'll kind of get into, you know, how your company's changing the industry and what you guys have found out and all that jazz.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Nick Erdmann, Director of Business Development for Vectura Risk Management. I've really kind of spent my whole career in supply chain security. It was kind of big part of it was with a previous company, Transport Security Enforcer, where we secured truck, trailer, and containers with physical locking devices and GPS devices as well. I kind of cut my teeth there and really kind of developed in the industry, and really kind of landed here at Vectura to really build out with our transport risk as a service, essentially under one thing, where we have monitoring, cargo escorts, risk assessments. We work with verification companies to kind of implement all that into our platform. And then one of my other hats too, I also sit on the Midwest Cargo Security Council board, where we could probably get into that a little bit. Conference that might be beneficial to a lot of brokers out there, shippers as well, but very good networking opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you'll have to fill me. Go ahead and do that now. Fill me in on what all they do, because I follow them on like LinkedIn, and I live in Georgia, so I'm not really in the Midwest, but I still love the content. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely not just something for folks in the Midwest. Obviously, people have operations that run through the Midwest, and might have satellite offices in the Midwest. Essentially, what the council does, it's been around for a long time, been like kind of officially part of a 5C for like the last 10 years or so.
Okay.
Where essentially we do is we network with law enforcement, industry person, industry, shippers, carriers, all private sector, and essentially get together, usually on a quarterly basis. But then we have one. It's essentially 2 half days of networking in June 9th and 10th, a little plug
Hmm.
for our conference. But essentially we have speakers very similar to some of the other conventions out there where you have kind of folks that are, industry professionals and industry top in their industry talking about what they're seeing out there. So it's not only specific to the Midwest, but again, the folks usually are within the Midwest. So it's a good way to network. Like you said, you all like to network at all these events. The more
Hmm.
people doing things, whether it's competing companies, those kind of things, security, it's all under one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, June 9th and 10th is when we're having it.
Is that
We're in
in,
Boca.
is it in
We're in Boca.
Chicago or?
It is in the
Okay.
suburbs of Chicago, so it's in Plainfield, Illinois.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. When anytime we can get together, and I think it's hard, kind of like I mentioned before, it's kind of hard for some companies to go to like a big conference, like a
Yeah.
TIA or whatever. So even just like a little one like this, especially if there's two different half days, that's easier. You can work half a day and then flop on over there if you're local. There's so many companies in Chicago area too. So
Yeah, and that's why we kind of adjusted it rather than being a full 2 days or a day and a half of full things. We just kind of split it up a little bit, so it could be something someone could come in from out of town,
yeah.
travel wise, and all that kind of stuff too.
Or if you stay out too late the night before, whatever. It is Chicago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, perfect. So part of what you guys mainly do is you know go in and basically like explain everything, but I know you guys do like a lot of the, like, let's say it's an escort service or different, I guess, security measurements that you guys do, and you're helping shippers, carriers, and brokers, kind of the whole industry, and especially high value. I know it's not just high value, but especially high value, like taking that, it's still insane to me, like over anything really over 250,000, that they won't have an escort. To me, it's totally worth the money, or they won't have pallet tracking, or they won't even have tracking. I'm like, this is insane. Like, this is 101. What are some things, I guess, that you're seeing throughout your company, or even just with new clients, or if you hear of new cargo theft trends or whatever, anything that you're seeing that's kind of crazy in your mind and something that you guys have been solving?
Yeah, like you said, probably should specify cargo security escorts.
Gotcha.
We can get in trouble probably for just saying just escorts, but it's always kind of
Yeah. My bad. My
a
bad.
caveat, right? But
Yeah.
our cargo escorts really probably 10, 15 years ago, they were kind of a newer thing, and they were very popular. They kind of fell off a little bit, but over the last several years, with the price of electronic, the AI movement with data centers and those kind of things,
Hmm.
just the price of freight has increased. You kind of mentioned, a lot of companies that, high value falls into that 250 or $250,000. A lot of times, there's shipments that are, well over, $1 to $2 million that are
Right.
moving down the road, excess of that. So that's really kind of where the portion of our business with the cargo escorts kind of comes into play, where it's just a redundancy, right? I know you've had other folks on your podcast where really kind of exposing the layers of security, because there's no
Yeah.
single thing out there that
No.
really can, there's no silver bullet, right? So
Right.
having those layers, and cargo escorts are just one of those layers, and it's that physical layer of having a presence of people that are following that, not only from the pickup, so verifying, kind of the verification process along with other processes you have in place, but verifying the drivers are who they are supposed to be,
Hmm.
the equipment is what they are, and then everything stays intact all the way through that journey. So that's really what the cargo escorts really do, as far as maintaining that whole chain of custody all the way through. And typically, with most high value, you're not stopping, secure stops, all those kind of things. So it's again, that's one piece of our business that are really having the boots on the ground with cargo escorts is like you said, the high value really is a small price to pay for a little more added security.
Yeah. Especially if something goes missing. It's funny because, and I learned this, I first heard this at the Travelers Cargo Net Summit in California, where they're, and it's kind of like a duh moment whenever they told me, but it was like losing a shipment isn't just the price tag of, let's say $1 million. Like, yeah, that's a big deal, but it's also having the effect of having you having to replenish that product, because it does go missing. That product's now on the street selling for a lot less. Your product value goes down. It's just like a ripple effect of a bunch of different things. And I don't think, shippers, I guess, I think they're seeing that a lot more now than ever. Thank God it's
Yeah.
kind of taken this long. But yeah, I think, and part of my biggest thing too, this whole year is as a broker, educating your shippers on, hey, this is what's going on cargo theft wise. This is new trends. We have these services that we can add into our RFP or whatever we're quoting on a lane or whatever, because I know this high value, we can add this in. And so I think a lot of times shippers can't add on like an additional vendor, but they can use the broker and kind of put that in that cost within what the broker would pay. Do you see kind of the same thing whenever you deal with brokers, or are they just simply covering it under their own expense?
A lot of times they'll put that under when they're bidding freight, they'll put our services, whether it's the cargo escorts or the monitoring, and kind of put that in as a piece, obviously, to it.
Hmm.
And it comes down to how they, I guess, how they sell it, right, to their customer. As far as you have to learn how to sell security, because everybody wants their stuff to get from point A to point B the most efficient way, the cheapest way, typically, right? And
Yeah.
everybody's cost savings and those kind of things. But when you're looking at high value, high dollar freight, skimping on security, really, I know Scott talks about this a lot, but really having a security culture, right? I mean, you're making sure you're pausing, right, and taking a look at these products and making sure you're taking a look at these shipments, understanding the risk associated with them, and understanding that, hey, we need to put these in. Yes, it might be a little bit more, expensive, as far as to the customer. Having those processes in place of security is better off, like you said, kind of than having a stolen load or a compromised load that could be X amount of whatever that $250,000 product is, or $100 million product is.
Yeah.
That's going to be X. If it's stolen and compromised, that's going to negate whatever you could have
Right.
spent on security.
Yeah, and I think shippers luckily aren't kind of at the point anymore where they're fully pointing fingers at brokers and like, "Hey, this is all your fault, and you should do better," and this and that. Like, I still hear it sometimes, especially those uneducated shippers. But I think that's where it comes into play. Where as you are adding in new shippers, or you have existing shippers, going to it as a, "Hey, just so you know, this is what's happening in the industry." I mean, like, I love how CargoNet gives out all those stats as well, and like, "Hey, this is nationwide what's all happening, and this is what I do on my side to protect, but I need your help to do this." And so kind of having that yin and yang, I guess,
Yeah.
conversation. And like you said, having that security, mindset culture and building that in with your shipper. Cause sometimes they just don't know. Like they only
Yeah.
see their own little tiny, warehouse or whatever, where a broker sees a ton of different customers.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, it is education. To your point, I think
Mhm.
you've had a number of other guests on there where it's educating the shipper, right?
Right.
Educating them on what your protocol is, what you're doing, to really kind of, there needs to be that give and take a little bit, or that the work with me so we can move your product successfully.
Yeah.
That's really kind of what it comes down to.
So I have to ask, has there been like a Fast and Furious, like with the escort, like Fast and Furious status, and they're like going crazy and whatever? Has that happened, or is
Not
this all
not
movies?
knock on wood somewhere.
Okay.
Luckily, in the U.S., that is not a typical
Okay.
MO, for theft. It is in other countries, so it's definitely
Gotcha.
definitely something that goes on out there. But we've had our share of different things where we've been following a shipment, and a car has been following our escorts for a
Mm,
while. We kind of note the license plates and those kind of things, and there's been different issues, per se, as far as some suspicious activity during at the shipper's warehouse, those kind of things that we note. Again, having those physical people on the ground,
yeah,
they're able
looking
then
at
to
it.
notice that. So again, they're all former law enforcement, former military, so they're trained for that, right? So
Right.
they understand that and know what to look for.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think a lot of it too is the mitigating the risk part is because they're actually validating everything where we want shippers to check everything. They're actually doing that and then following them. Cause that, like that $1.4 million thing of Nintendo Switches was they stopped at a truck stop and to me, I'm still like, there's no way that this guy wasn't in on it, but that's me.
Yeah.
Why would you leave that unattended? And either he says he has no idea what the product is. If that is the case, that shipper's dumb for doing that.
Yeah.
But also, why would you leave that in like a random thing? So I guess real fast, if you kind of want to give your insights on as a broker, what are some things I can do to mitigate my risk as far as either maybe carrier vetting or, once I know that the shipment is worth so much, or even just like a regular old shipment, I think they're attacking everything. So it's not just high value anymore. So I guess any tips and tricks that you have that's not, I guess, giving the bad guys information too.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. They're attacking everything. I mean, the theft reports we get through all the time from the various reporting agencies out there, right? For cargo theft, it's it doesn't surprise me anymore that of what comes through.
Yeah.
Multi-million-dollar shipments that go stolen were posted on a load board.
Right.
That's kind of a kind of a not a good thing.
Yeah.
All the way down to the 50 to $100,000 load of widgets, right? That get stolen. Yeah.
Mhm.
So really nothing in this day and age. Way back when there was cargo theft, but it was like a lot of your other guests have said, strategic theft is the big thing now, right?
Yeah.
But straight theft still is an issue, but just strategic theft has just grown so fast and so quickly, and it just kind of exploding in the market. Understanding really where your risks are to the brokers, when you're talking with your shipper, understanding, hey, what are we hauling? What is this? What are where's it going to? Is it going through some of the hot spots of cargo theft?
Yeah.
Understanding that, educate, trying to, like you said, educate your shipper of what you need to do in order to move this in a sufficient way, and using carriers that you can rely on. I mean, that's, I know, a big thing. Carrier
Mhm.
vetting, there's a lot of great companies out there, but carrier vetting is so important because everything happens before you even give the
Yeah.
load to somebody, making sure that that is a legitimate carrier, legitimate driver that is going to be moving along with your $100,000 million load, whatever it is. So really taking the time. I think a lot of people in the industry stress,
Mhm.
like we're all about the the speed of and that's good.
Mhm.
Logistics is a speed thing, but taking that pause, especially on high value, high risk freight, standing, educating everybody in your company, understanding, hey, this is what needs to be happen, based on these tiers of value for a product. We need to take the time to really understand that. So whether it's having a cargo escort, having tracking devices in it, having locking devices on the trucks and trailers, make sure you have like that tiered, like, okay, hey, we're going to treat $100,000 load a little bit different than we would a $2 million load.
Right.
I mean, so understanding what those are in your company and what requirements you need your carriers, especially, to understand what they need to have in place, right? So you as a broker saying, hey, if you want to move this for us, you're going to need to have X, Y, and Z on your truck and trailer, and you're gonna have to do these requirements. Otherwise, we can't give this load to you. So
Yeah. I think something that a lot of people miss is on a driver level, because I do think we're kind of like carrier vetting is great. I'm kind of big on like driver level vetting. And I think especially if it's X amount of dollars or higher, having that conversation with the driver and being like, have you ever handled high value freight? And if they haven't, I don't know if I would really give them my freight. I mean,
yeah,
I would want an experienced driver who does high value, kind of like having a experienced mechanic work on my a Ferrari versus like, somebody at a Ford dealership working on my Ford. Like, I just think
yeah,
it's totally different depending on the type of freight. Like you can pay, you're going to pay more, but having that conversation with the driver of, hey, have you done this before? What have you done in the past to protect yourself? Cause that's a big thing too. Drivers are getting like, they get held at gunpoint and they have all these things too. So it's kind of like you need to know what you're signing up for. And I also need to know what I'm signing up for, and having
exactly.
that conversation with the driver.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, understanding the risk and understanding that, hey, if you want, it's not always going to be the cheapest, right? But security doesn't have to be expensive either. So, but
Right.
there's that balance of, hey, we want it to get the safe, we want the driver to arrive safely at the end destination, want the product to arrive safely at the end destination. Is having that, the happy medium as far as, what you spend on security as far as that goes.
Yeah. So you guys do the pallet tracking level two, or is it just,
Well, yeah, well, what's nice about what we do is our Vectura platform really is able to, again, we're a device agnostics. Essentially, we work
Gotcha.
with all the best technologies out there. So I know you've had quite a few different technology companies out there. A lot of them we
Hmm.
work with. There's new ones coming up all the time.
Right.
Manifest was a great conference to network with a lot of those technology companies. But we're able to really pull, if your company's using a technology that you guys love, most likely we can integrate it into our platform and
Okay.
basically uh, have our 24/7 monitoring team monitor it, whether you're monitoring temperature, excursions as far as deviations from routes and those kind of things, or
Right.
stoppages, those kind of things. The technology, there's so many good technologies out there that, again, from the pallet level to just the entire shipment or the trailer or the truck,
Yeah.
we're able to feed all that information into our Vectura platform.
Gotcha. And then the physical locks, what kind of makes those special?
Having locking devices, again, there's a lot of new devices out there that are becoming smart locks, right?
Hmm.
I think probably 6, 7 years ago, we talked about electronic locks out there. There's been a lot of new developments with those. So same kind of thing where have high security locking devices that can really kind of communicate. There's some seals out there that can communicate with devices inside the cargo as well. So if it gets cut, those kind of things are compromised at any point. Those are kind of feed into the tech stack, if you will, of a secure shipment.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know there was like smart seals, but it makes sense. I mean, there should be. I mean, it being just a piece of plastic blows my mind. It's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, I know you've seen all the different things out there, like compromised seals and different things like that. So you
Yeah,
use a high quality seal.
for the love of God, especially if it's X amount of dollars, there's no way it costs that much money to do them, especially on like a mass quantity. So as far as I'm a broker or whatever, and obviously I'm not a shipper, I can't put this on like a trailer or whatever. Is it where like usually they just have that relationship with the carrier level and they kind of equip the carrier with that? Is it where they have the relationship with the shipper and kind of have that then put that on there? Or what's some things I guess that you've been seeing as far as success for actually using these products?
Yeah, it comes down to really having that relationship with the shipper, right? So
Okay.
brokers, yeah, dealing, so if they have a number of lanes coming out of whatever city that they're shipping from, working with that shipper and be like, hey, all these loads that we're doing for you, we need you to we have a process, have a process of putting this pallet tracker in there, or this device, or put this seal, put this lock on, for our container, our carriers do that.
Hmm.
So having a protocol, it comes back to education of, say, hey, we're taking these steps. We need you to have kind of a buy-in on that,
Right.
and really kind of getting that buy-in from the shipper to kind of really help you, right? Because yeah, brokers aren't boots on the ground; they don't have someone there. But
Yeah.
if you can have that relationship with them, typically most shippers, if you deal with them right, are gonna you're asking them to do. If it's not too time consuming, right?
Yeah. Right, and I think, just like you just mentioned, the relationship piece is so important, and I think also being that liaison for the shipper of like, "Hey, I am the reason why you're hiring me is because I do know all these things and all these trends, and I am ahead of the game, and I provide this type of service." Not only do I care about your freight, but I even put an escort service. You know what I mean? Like, just you care
Exactly.
enough about it that you're that elite broker that they give things to. Because I think a lot of times, a lot of people think it's just like the rate that you bid on and stuff like that. But I think there's a decent amount of shippers out there nowadays that have had enough cargo theft happen where they're like, it's not just rates, it also needs to be different security levels. So offering that is huge.
Yeah, it gets back to that relationship, right? Having a relationship with your shipper, having a relationship with your shipper, and educating them. Keep on coming back to that,
Yeah.
but educating them on the importance of security and why you're doing the things you're doing. Because, like you said, a lot of the shippers don't come to the conferences or aren't able to come to the conferences. But educating them, that's really where you can sell security to your shipper and be like, hey, this is why we're a tier one broker for you, because we're taking those extra steps and really
Hmm.
kind of, and I've seen it happen a lot where it allows those guys to get more lanes, win
Right.
more lanes after, hey, they're successfully doing these lanes, let's give them these because they've had no incidences. They're really taking our freight seriously. So let's reward them. So I've seen that, seen it happen both ways, right? I'm sure
Right.
you've seen the same.
So so you guys have like the live thing watching or live people watching the whole thing. So obviously, I'm sure you guys have actually seen it in the act of something bad happening. Whenever that does happen, like I'm a broker. Is it like you notify the broker and you do it, or is it boots so that you go ahead and call law enforcement? Like what's step that you guys take a little bit, and then also like as a broker, what are some steps that you think that at least just from your knowledge from the industry that you
Yeah.
think that they should do?
Yeah, each company has their different, standard operating procedure (SOP). So as far as the SOP, as far as how it escalates,
Uh-huh.
whether hey, the driver's not contacting, or we have a deviation from a route, those kind of things, or it's stopped at a location it's not supposed to, and we can't get a hold of the driver. That's then when we kind of start to raise the red flags as far as okay, now we need to escalate our response process. Boots on the ground, those kind of things, as far as getting law enforcement involved and those kind of things if it's something where it truly is, it could be a theft event.
Yeah.
That's really the communication is key, as far as communicating with the broker, communication with the carrier, making sure everybody that's involved is involved in that process as well. So it's a group effort, but understanding what those red flags are when they're raised, and how you're going to go about that is key.
So before they actually like, let's say like they're picking their route, like I know just because I'm part of the macro point team or whatever, there's for them, for instance, that they kind of pick the best route, but sometimes people go somewhere different because it's not actually a truck route, or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Is it usually like, is it something where they like report like, hey, I'm taking this and this road, or can they do that and that kind of helps things, or have you guys ran into that?
Yeah, a lot of times communication, right? Communication
Hmm.
with the driver, like, "Hey, this is the route we would like them to take. We agreed on this route, but they deviate from it." As long as there's communication with that driver, and obviously we have eyes on it, that is going, it's going still down the road in the right direction, right? It's not
Yeah.
going south when it's supposed to be going north, because they wanted to take a different way.
Yeah.
But it's making sure that we're all on the same page, right? So that does happen from time to time, right? Because they want, and it may be legitimate too. Like it might be weather related, that they
Right.
need to go a different way. And that's something that a route, staying on a route is not possible. They're going to deviate from that. So I mean, again, just a communication between the driver and understanding why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah. So I know a big thing that as far as when a cargo theft a lot of times happen, especially strategic, but sometimes even just straight theft with if they're in on it type thing and it's actually the carrier gone rogue. A lot of times they fake a breakdown and then delay, delay, delay. Hey, we're waiting at roadside. Hey, 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 and then they make it to wherever. Obviously, with having your guys' visibility, that's something you at least can see. Like, yes, they're stopped here, and things like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, it's two-pronged, right? So with the cargo escorts, our folks should be stopping with them. So
Okay.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
really kind of no, faking the breakdown or anything like
Right.
that. We're reporting constantly, to our operations center with what's going on from the road, but also from a monitoring standpoint. Our team is then on that too. So hey, we're contacting the driver. Okay, you're broken down. All right, we're gonna geofence this, this location. We're gonna, that's where our team kind of, yeah, puts that up on a kind of a red alert, if you will,
Yeah.
to really kind of let's watch this, because he says he's on the side of the road. We keep an eye on that. But yeah, that's the communication between that is critical on a time like that.
Yeah. Is there anything I guess that you guys recommend, like a certain dollar amount that would then, like you said, the different level of tiers and stuff? Is that something I guess you guys go through like in your sales process whenever talking to customers or potential customers of like, hey, if you're hauling this and we recommend this and that type of thing?
Yeah, there's. I mean, a lot of time with cargo escorts, typically, that $1 million, 1.5 million is kind of the threshold that really kind of makes the most sense from a dollar perspective. Have
Right.
we done ones that are less? Yes. Have we done ones that are more? Absolutely. But that 1.5 million is kind of that sweet spot of where it really makes sense. But for monitoring, I think every shipment, no matter whether it's water bottles or
Yeah.
AI servers, should be monitored in some level, whether it's pallet level or whether it's just the truck, the trailer, some kind of visibility. Otherwise, it's kind of just
Yeah.
in the wind.
Something interesting that I just heard about from, I think it was Dale Prax that told me this about the Department of Defense, their contracts and how they've just been having so much theft within even them. And, Sean Duffy will talk about this and this and this, and shippers should be accountable. And it's like, literally you guys are the biggest shipper out there and you guys are having thefts. What I think is interesting about that too, because sometimes it's not even just the value amount, it's what you're actually hauling. Because for instance, those type of things with the like a Department of Defense, their house, right? Like they're moving them across the country or whatever, having it where they can put a bug in there. Like there's a lot of like national security stuff too that, shouldn't be taken lightly. And it's surprising to me. I think I'm cutting out. Did I cut out? Can you hear
I
me?
think I lost you for a second.
Okay. Anyways, I was just saying on Department of Defense stuff that, like, even like if you're moving a high official military personnel or whatever, and you're moving their house and having bugs in there, like there's a lot of like national security stuff on like a Department of Defense contract level that I think people should take more serious and do things like this with that, because this is like a national security type thing.
Absolutely.
I cut out a lot. Shoot, my internet's messing up. Well, cool. Well, yeah, I just wanted to plug that in just because I think it's important to know it's not always just value; it's also what it is,
Yeah. Yeah. High risk or high sensitivity for sure.
for sure. Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, how can people reach you guys and in touch and all that jazz?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn, Nick Erdmann, Vectura Risk Management. GoVectura.com is our website. But yeah, feel free to reach out if questions. Again, I'll plug the Midwest Cargo Security Council conference again, June 9th and 10th. Midwest Cargo Security Council. We're on LinkedIn. Our website is MidwestCargoSecurityCouncil.com. But yeah, I appreciate having me on, and it was
Yeah.
fun chatting with you.
I know it's always fun. You and me are the same way. We're like love the educational pieces. I could talk about this all day long. Like, let me talk about it. And that's funny because like beforehand, most of these, whenever I have a Fraud Girl episode, they're like, "Do you have questions ahead of time?" And I'm like, "Nope, you know it, I know it. Let's go. Like, we can just
Yeah,
wing this."
it's a perfect format. I love the industry, love learning more. I think there's a lot, I mean, the security is everybody's on the same team, right? It doesn't
Right,
matter what company you work for, but you're on the same team as far as fighting the bad guys.
right. We'll love it. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll have you guys on again here at some point because you guys are just awesome with what you do. So thanks so much.
Hey, thanks a lot, Danielle.
Bye, everybody.